In this video, we're going to be working on solving multi-step equations and using Graspable Math. So before we get into it, let's start with a problem. So you're loading cases of soda into the fridge. You put one full case of soda and two cases of soda that are only missing one can each. Well, your brothers must have taken one. If you know that you have a total of 70 cans of soda in the fridge, how many cans came in each case originally? So let's dive into this problem. So when we're looking here, we have to first figure out what are we asked to solve. So if we look at the question here, we're asked to figure out how many cans came in each case originally. So if we're loading up cans of soda, we'll define a variable. We'll say x is going to represent the number of cans in a case. Trying to figure out how many were in the original case. So let's see, some important information. We know we have a total of 70, so we have 70 cans of soda. That's pretty awesome. So we'll say it's equal 70 because that's our total. And let's see, we have one full case and two cases that are missing one. Okay, so let's see if we can figure this out. Well, if I'm starting with the one full case, I know that's x, because that's how much is in each case. So I have one full case, and then I have two that are missing one. Well, if I want to write missing one, I could just write x minus 1, because that's a case, one case minus one can. And if I have two of those, I'm going to multiply this whole quantity by 2, because I have how many there are minus 1 times 2, because there's two cases. Then I'm going to add them together, and that comes out to be 70 cans total. Now, this type of problem is very different from the ones that we saw in the last video. A little trickier, because you see here we have the set of parentheses, this grouping symbols. So it's a little bit more than what we did last time. It's more than just undoing addition, subtraction, undoing multiplication and division. So before I jump into Graspable Math and how to do this, let's look at our steps. So we're adding 2 new steps to the solving equation process. So the first thing we're going to do when we see it is we're going to start by distributing. Now, the distributive property, we reviewed that in the last topic, is when you multiply each term inside the parentheses by whatever's on the outside. So that's the first thing we're going to do typically. And then the third thing, we'll get to the other missing ones later, is we're going to combine like terms on the same side. And this means the same side of the equal sign. So we'll get to that. Then we continue to work with the rest of the steps. We undo addition and subtraction, and we undo multiplication and division. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my Graspable Math. Now, you should be watching this video. Your screen should look like this. And again, right here should be this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the equation that I'm working with. So if you remember how to do that, we're going to come up here to the insert button. We're going to do math expression, and then we just type it. So we're going to do x plus 2 parentheses, x minus 1 equals 70. Now you could use this keyboard and type it using this keyboard here. I prefer to use the actual typing one. Then I hit done. So I'm going to scoot this over. Remember, if you want to move an equation, there's this imaginary spot on the left where you can grab it and move it over. So if we're looking at our steps, back at the ones that we just had. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with the distributive property. So I'm going to take this 2 and I'm going to multiply all the terms on the inside by the 2. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click and drag, and you see here how those little blue lines appear. That means I'm distributing. So I'm going to distribute, and notice that I multiply both terms. It becomes 2x minus 2. So I've already combined those. All right, next I want to combine these terms. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click this plus button, and I'm going to combine those terms, and x plus 2x gives 3x. Now you notice if I followed these steps correctly, I did my distributing, combining like terms, this turns into a 2-step problem, just like we did in the previous session. So I'm going to undo this minus 2. So undo minus 2. This is going to turn into a plus 2. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Combine them so I get 72. And then I got to undo this times 3. So to undo times 3, we divide by 3. Let's simplify this. We click the bar and we get 24. So it looks like we bought some 24 packs of soda. Now I want to make sure that we show our work. So remember, you grab this little button and you drag it down. Oh, is it all going to fit? That's okay. We'll scoot everything else down. Like so. So I've got all of my steps. I see my distributing. I see my combining like terms, undo subtraction, divide, and I'm good to go. Now that we've seen how this works, let's go ahead and do a couple of examples. So I have this one on the left here, and I see these giant parentheses, and that tells me, hey, you're going to distribute at some point. So let's start by distributing. So I'm going to take this 3, and I'm going to multiply both terms on the inside. So I get 3x plus 12. So I see here that I multiplied. Now I'm going to try and combine like terms. And well, if I click this plus button thinking that 3x and 12 go together, notice it gets mad at me and says, hey man, you can't do that because this has an x and this doesn't. They're not like terms, so we can't combine them. Now let's try these ones. So how about 5x and 3x? Let's combine those. Okay, and so I see here that I have 8x. So notice these terms combine and I'm good. Now let's go ahead and undo this plus 12. So I'm going to take this plus 12, I'm going to move it to the other side, and notice it turns to minus 12 because I'm subtracting 12 from both sides. So I get 16. Now I want to undo this times 8, so I take 8, divide, and well, I get an answer of 2. And notice how this one showed the work for me as I went. I'm not sure why I did that, so won't complain, but it looks pretty nice. Now let's try this one. So when I look here, I'm thinking, well, what if I combine this 4x and the 3? And when I click it, it says, no way, Jose, that's not allowed. So this is a no-go. So let's start by distributing. Now, normally, if we were doing this by hand, what we would do is we want to distribute the -3. However, when I do this in the computer, it gets a little wonky. So it only let me distribute the 3 the first time. Okay, so I multiplied both terms by 3, and I left the negative out here. So what's going to happen now is I'm actually distributing twice when if we were doing this by hand, we would distribute once. We'd multiply both terms by -3. But here I'm multiplying by 3 and then I'm distributing my negative. So you see here how my signs flip. So if we were doing this by hand, we would just go straight from step 1 to step 2 or step 3. Next, let's combine my like terms. So I see here I've got 4x minus 3x. Combine those and I get a plain x. And well, the only thing left to do is undo this plus 6. So I subtract 6 from both sides. Oh, or add -6, that works too. And I get a value of 15. And there we have it. So we have 15, we have 2. So here are 2 problems. What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and try the one on the left, and I'll go over it here in just a moment. All right, let's get to it. So I'm looking for parentheses so I can distribute, and unfortunately, I don't see it. So I'm going to try and combine here. Can't combine those, but I can combine these because I have 2x minus 9. Okay, looks good. Now, let's undo this plus 17 because I want to peel back the layers. It's like taking off our shoe to get x by itself. So I subtract 17 from both sides, and I get -21. And well, the only thing left to do here is divide by -7. And I get a +3. Wonderful. So I'm going to show my steps, drag it down, and I'm good to go. Now, if you ever make a mistake and you come up with a bunch of extra steps that you don't want, and you want to try the problem again, what you can do, instead of dragging this dot down, you can drag this dot over. Drag it over, and what it'll do is it'll copy that original problem. So if I grab right here, drag it over, it'll copy the original problem. Now, if I want to get rid of this problem because I accidentally dragged, if you click this arrange button right here, notice how a little X pops up. So I'm going to click this little X and it disappears. Now, if I try and do any math when I'm in the arrange mode, it's not going to work. So I can't like combine my terms here. It's going to get mad. You have to make sure you're in this transform mode in order to do the rest. All right, now let's try this one. So I want you to pause the video and try and solve this problem. I'll go over it here in just a moment. Good. So I'm going to start with distributing because I know that's these giant parentheses tell me that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to multiply everything on the inside by 4. Lovely. Now I can't combine these 2 terms because they don't both have x's, but I'm going to combine my constants. So -4 plus 8 gives me +4. All right, now I need to peel back the layers. So undo +4, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides. And let's see what that gives me. It gives me 10. All right, now I want to undo this times 8. So I'm going to bring my 8 over. It turns to division. And let's see what happens when I click. And so I get an answer of 5/4. Now you could put this as a decimal if you want, 1.25, but 5/4 is perfectly acceptable. That's a great answer. So I'm just going to slide it down, show my steps. Oh, scroll down just a little bit. Come on. A little bit more. All right. So, oh, it's not showing all my steps. Let's keep going. There we go. Now I got them all. So I can see my distributing, I can see my combining like term, and so on. It's just written out a little bit longer than normal. So that's it. That's how we continue with our steps of solving problems. You're going to do some problems by hand, but you can use this as a reference, how to distribute, how to combine your like terms, and so on.